This video is about how to immigrate from India to United States in 2022 and get a green card at the end of your journey. My name is Marina Shepelsky. I'm the founder of Shepelsky Law Group, and I want to tell you how to immigrate from India. What are the different ways? How does each way differ from the other, and how you can choose whichever pathway to US citizenship, which is at the end after a green card, is right for you. First of all, for consular processing in India, there's 5 US consulates in India, and they are US Consulate General in Hyderabad, Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, and Bengaluru. So those are the places where you will go if you end up getting a non-immigrant or an immigrant visa while inside India. Generally speaking, there are only 6 ways to get a green card from India, or from any country really. Number 1, an employer files an immigrant petition for you. They need you to come to the United States for work. Number 2, a family member or spouse, which is also family of course, files a family petition for you. And when the visa is current, you go for an interview and you come to the United States through a family petition. Next is first you get a non-immigrant visa, a temporary visa to come to America. For example, like a work visa, H-1B. And then once you're here, you adjust status to something else, also through family or asylum or an employer's petition. Next is asylum. If you are in the United States and you are afraid to return to India because you're in one of the 5 protected categories, for example, because of your race or religion or political views or social group or nationality, when in India you were abused, you were persecuted, or maybe you were not in the past abused or persecuted, but you're facing that possibility if you return back in the future. You might be persecuted. You can file for asylum and become an asylee in the United States and then bring your spouse and kids as well. Also, there's humanitarian visas. For example, a U visa, a VAWA, a petition when you marry a citizen and they abuse you, or even a green card holder and they abuse you, or a T visa for victims of trafficking. And finally, you can apply for a DV diversity lottery and get your visa that way. So first, let's talk about, generally speaking, what is like the process of visas, right? An immigrant petition is filed by a relative, or an employer files an I-140 immigrant worker petition for you. It always starts with USCIS and then it moves to a consulate in India. Of course, the consulate depends on where you live in India, and they pick the address and the processing place for an interview specifically based on where you live geographically. Now, in general, a person who wishes to immigrate to the United States from India directly has to have a petition approved first. Now, India has much longer waiting dates for both employer petitions and family petitions than every other country pretty much, except for maybe Mexico. So India, Mexico, and Philippines have much more delayed processing for every visa type. So it's important to know when your visa petition is approved. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get an interview right away. Maybe you will if you're a spouse of your citizen, or even a green card holder spouse. Those go much quicker than everything else. But a lot of other categories need to wait for a visa to become available in the quota for India for the financial year when your visa becomes current. So there are queues or waiting lines in almost every category, both in family and an employer immigrant petition. Now, immigrant versus non-immigrant. Immigrant petitions, just to give you some vocabulary used in this process, immigrant petitions means you're coming to the United States to stay here permanently. Family petitions, employer petitions, where you get a green card at the end, those are called immigrant petitions. Non-immigrant visas are for temporary visits like H-1B, L-1, O-1. All those work visas are related to your job, but they're meant to end after only a couple of years, or 4, 5, 6 years at most. All right, so once you're on your way with your petition and it's approved, it could go 2 ways. Either it goes through consular processing, and I mentioned it goes to the embassy or the consulate, or if you're inside the United States and your visa is current, you can file for something called adjustment of status, a green card inside the United States. And then you skip the consular processing altogether. I talked about the non-immigrant visas. So there is a way to come here and get a green card. If you first come through a non-immigrant visa, once you live here, then you file for something else. Here's some non-immigrant visas real quick. E-visa for treaty country traders. You're coming to US to trade. F1 student visa. You're coming to US to study as a student. J1 visa. There's two types. You can be a physician or doctor, or you can be a student coming to US to work, for example, in the summer and then travel a little bit. It's called work and travel, J1 visa. M1, M like Mary, for educational training in the United States. B1 or B2, both are tourist visas. One is for pleasure, one is for business. Usually they're used like interchangeably. H1B visa that I mentioned briefly. Those are specialty jobs that require you to have at least a bachelor's degree or above. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, you can use 4 or more years of experience, at least usually we try to do 5 or 6 years really in reality, to substitute for a degree, but you need to have really good education and the company has to show they need you here. They can't find American workers like you. That's the H-1B visa. There's H-2 visa for seasonal workers. Less education is needed, it's just mostly for people who have certain skills, and a lot of like companies that need seasonal workers apply for these. There's also the H-3 visa for trainee or special exchange education visa, as it's called sometimes. There's also the L-1 visa for inside the company transfer. For example, one UK office that makes records opens another office in US, like a branch or an affiliate, and they need to transfer somebody from the UK company to America to work. Maybe it's a manager or like some sort of an executive or a director. You could file for them for an L1 visa, but also you could file an L visa for the supporting staff. Okay, now there's the K1 visa for fiance, meaning it's actually called a non-immigrant visa, but the reality is the person is coming to stay in the United States. The K1 visa is filed by US petitioner. They have to be single person who wishes to marry somebody from India. The fiance, girlfriend or boyfriend lives in India. So you file this petition to bring your sweetheart, your fiance, you engaged, you plan to marry to the United States. You get married within 90 days of you coming in here, the person from India, and then this couple files for the Indian immigrant fiance for a green card once they marry after within the 90-day period. So after marriage, you file for the green card through this process. Then there's R1, religious worker visa for priests or monks or anybody from temples or religious choir or directors, anybody who works in a religious institution, anything having to do with religion. It's a recognized institution and a recognized religion. You can bring them here to work in the United States, and actually later you can get them a green card. There's a P, like Peter, 1 visa for athletes and artists to come to the United States for either competitions or for a concert or a festival to perform. There's O1 visa to work here in the extraordinary ability worker category. You're a star in your field and you want to come here for a few years to live and work in the United States. Finally, there's 2 visas that are humanitarian. The T visa for trafficking victims and U visa for people who become victims and then witnesses of crimes, meaning somebody attacked you and you help the police, you help the district attorney to put the bad guy, the criminal, in jail. So briefly, those are the non-immigrant visas that you can get and then come to the United States. Once you're here, you can change your status. Now, how do you go directly to green cards? As I mentioned, the employer's petition, it's broken down, the work petition, into several categories. There's the PERM process, where you need employees with high education and experience. There's a process here that's first, the step 1 is it goes to the Labor Department. U.S. Department of Labor has to approve the company and the job and the salary and the tasks. And then step 2, if all of that is approved, you take the labor certification and you file for an immigrant petition. It's a 2-step process, and it's called PERM for short. Also, there's a national interest waiver petition for people who are like researchers or doctors or scientists, and coming here would be a great benefit for United States. Maybe they're some engineer or some researcher who invented some new ways to fight COVID. People like that can file for national interest waivers, either for themselves, self-sponsorship, or through a company. An employer can sponsor them. Now, there's EB2 and EB2 petitions for extraordinary and outstanding ability professionals. Again, these are stars of their field. Then there's green cards through family. Green cards through family, we have I-130 petitions as the first step, and then depending on whether the category is called immediate relative category. Immediate is parents of U.S. citizens, spouse of U.S. citizens, and kids under 21 of U.S. citizens, or just regular relative categories, and those are broken down into different, letters like F2A, F2B, F3, and F4, and that's green card holders filing for spouses and kids under 21, then green cards filing for children over 21 who are single, that's F2B, and then there's F3, married children of U.S. citizens, and F4, siblings, like brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. All of those take a tremendously long period of time, but we still recommend that you file them because you want to bring your family here, and the time clock has to start at some point. So we do still recommend that you wait the time and you file. Also, just a couple of words about a big chunk of what we do at our office. We file for people I-360 VAWA petitions. VAWA is short for Violence Against Women and Men Act. And if you're married to a U.S. citizen or green card holder, but that person abuses you, treats you badly, does not treat you right verbally, physically sometimes, doesn't have to be physical, emotionally, financially controls you, isolates you, you can get a green card and a work permit all on your own through VAWA. And it doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman, either way works. Now, let's talk about asylum. Asylum is for people who were persecuted in India because of their race, color, religion, nationality, ethnic group, or political opinion, or even being in a social group like LGBTQ, for example, or people fighting corruption. That could be called a social group. So if you're in one of those categories and you were abused already in India and now you're afraid to go back, or if you go back, you will be abused, maybe something changed in your background, then you should file for asylum inside the United States. Usually you have to file within 1 year of coming here to the United States. If you file after a year, it's really going to be difficult to prove what happened, okay? Another way, and the final way that I wanted to mention about asylum is if you really have no other way to get here, you don't have a visa to get in here, you don't have a prospect of an employer, you don't have a family member, but you are being persecuted, abused in India. If you can get yourself to the border of United States, you can ask for asylum. Now you can come through Mexico into Texas or Arizona or through Canada to the U.S. border, and at one of the CBP points, which is U.S. Customs and Border Enforcement, officially ask for asylum, say you're afraid to go back, you're in one of these protected categories that I mentioned, race, religion, nationality, and so on. And you have a right to say, I ask for asylum. You should have documents and facts and your testimony. You can write your story to prove why you're afraid to live in India. That wraps up everything that I wanted to say to you guys about asking for asylum or getting a work petition or a family petition or coming here with a non-immigrant visa and then getting a green card through adjustment of status. These are all the things that you can do to get a green card from India in the United States right now, end of 2022. Shepelsky Law Group is where we give consultations to people and help them in their process of becoming a green card holder. We welcome you to call us and schedule a paid consultation. We work through paid consultations where we review with you your paperwork and all of your questions are answered and all of your options are discussed for how you can come to the United States from India today. Subscribe to our channel and please put a like if you like this video. Bye bye.